Oyun, the best pathologic character. No first name, Foreman of the abattoir, warden of the kin, and famously, guy who is 7 feet and 11 inches tall. That's 241 centimeters, based on his eye level and the average height of a human forehead from eye level. Why is he so huge? I have a theory, based on subtext from the game with a little seasoning of conjecture. First, a note. This video talks about violent ableism, dare I say eugenics, in Pathologic's world building. There will also be spoilers for all routes of Pathologic. Okay, so the extent to which Oyun is human is somewhat debated, not the least due to his massive size. Youngblood says he's not 100% human, while Aglaia's understanding of the law considers him at least in possession of an immortal soul. Oyun describes himself as a creature of the earth, like Clara or Aspedy. Spoken dialogue from the Haruspecs supports this notion.
Changeling spoke to the Foreman. Could it be that he had accepted her as one of his kind?
The fact that's confusing with respect to humanity is that Oyun says it's true that his grandfather was a bull. As a creature of the earth, Oyun is described as not being able to tell direct lies. Capella tells the bachelor that he cannot lie, just like she and the rest of those in charge cannot. Honestly, whether or not he's part animal isn't relevant to this theory, although it is a sensitive thing to consider, as animal comparisons are a talking point in anti-indigenous racism inside and outside the game. But there's also a way in which a statement could be literally true without referring to his taglure or family. We'll come back to that later. Most of the lines comparing Oyun himself to a bull make the comparison specifically through his feet. The word minotaur is only ever used once in text, in the Changeling's questlog narration. An herb gatherer describes Oyun as follows.
The biggest and the most dangerous Haruspecs is Foreman Oyun. He came here 2 days ago, trampled our fires and yurts. We would have died under his hooves had we not hidden ourselves.
Likewise, Mark Immortel says in spoken dialogue on Bachelor Day 8.
The Foreman has hooves for feet. Someone who saw it told me he does.
Although I prefer the drama of the way this line was read in the 2006 translation.
The elder has hooves instead of legs. Those who saw that told.
Beyond hearsay, hoofprints were found at the scene of Isidore Brach's murder. A patrolman says, "There was dust on the floor, for the deceased had been a renowned stepwalker, and the dust was all covered in hoofsteps and like traces of a sharp bone, I guess." If we look at Oyun's model, there is something a little strange going on with his feet. They're about twice the size of his head proportionally. If you hold your foot up to your face right now, you might find it's about equally as large as your head. This is weird, but not outside the realm of pathologic model jank. The effect is highlighted better in one piece of Oyun's concept art. His legs bend back as if they were triple jointed, with a knee and then a second extra knee, or what would be the ankle for an animal that walks on its toes. This is, in fact, the bone structure of ungulates such as cattle. However, the oldest known concept art for Oyun has no such difference. These regular man shoes are more similar to his unused model from the 2004 Bachelor Alpha. The change suggests that Oyun's legs may have been redesigned for a story-related reason. And speaking of change, Oyun himself has one very revealing voice line.
She gave me these legs to make up for the crippled ones.
Or in the 2006 version,
She has presented me these legs instead of being crippled.
Before we get into the line of dialogue that ties all of these facts together, I have to complain for a second about how hard it is to get this dialogue to show up in a Pathologic playthrough. It's part of a conversation that occurs with a dancer girl NPC, a wandering herb bride. Dancer girls can only spawn in 3 districts, the Tanners, the Hindquarters, and the Works, and only between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Furthermore, their dialogue changes every day, and this conversation only occurs on day 1 of the Bachelor's route, so it's actually only available for 2 hours, 10 p.m. to midnight on day 1, and Dancer Girl spawn rates are absolutely minuscule. Which is probably for the best, since her dialogue is a nasty piece of work. It mostly involves Dankovsky asking for favors from the Dancer Girl. Context suggests that she would originally have been a sex worker at Andres Tomatin's pub, rather than a generic NPC walking the streets. But there is one hugely important bit of world building that's only mentioned here. The body is sacred. The naked body is the most accurate image of the world. People used to tend to their bodies as if each of them were a shrine. Cripples and freaks used to be banished from the community not so long ago, just before the Suburovs came to power. Such was the bidding of the kin. They were devoured by the steppe. Earth corrected its mistakes. The dancer girl's dialogue continues. The locals believe that if the steppe doesn't accept a freak back into her womb, they'll creep out again as an evil spirit, a Nastau, a Mara, or a Shebnek Adir. That's how it goes, and that's why no one really cared for freaks around here. So, physically disabled people of the kin were, within living memory, straight up sent out into the steppe to die. Just before the Suburovs came to power is a little ambiguous, since it's not clear whether she means the two Suburovs appearing in the game or the broader Suburov family. It's more likely to be the former, because a patrolman says the Suburov family's been in power since olden days, versus not so long ago. And one origin of evil spirits, such as the Shebnek, is those exiled people who were not killed in the steppe, but were instead spat out of the earth and came back. As Oyun says to the changeling, "What right do you have to speak in this way to me, who was placed here by the loins of Suok, mother of clay, and the founder himself, Bostruch?" The earth at large is traditionally identified as Mother Bodo, but the steppe specifically is identified with Suok. An herb bride says her job is to call herbs out of Suok's gut, and to spill blood on the earth is to give it to Suok. The tunnels underneath the town and the abattoir are described as Suok's body and womb, respectively. The kin describe distinct groups of people as children of Bodo versus children of Suok, children of Bodo being most people of the kin, the humans and worms, and children of Suok being miraculous creatures like the albino or aspity. Oyun says that Clara can turn the blood of the children of Suok into the blood of Bos Primigenius. Clara's transformative powers apply to Oyun, aspity, and the other pound, but not to most humans. By calling himself a child of Suok, placed here by her loins, Oyun self-identifies with the evil spirits, those who crawl out after being rejected by the steppe. And furthermore, Suok arose from Bostruch, the world bull, when he was all that existed in the world. If we take this as Suok being implicitly the firstborn of Bostruch, then Oyun being birthed by Suok places him literally in that lineage. His grandfather was a bull. Neat. So, my theory, Oyun was once physically disabled, for which the kin sent him into the steppe to die. He was instead spat back out by Suok with new legs, prostheses which are literal hooves, which added 2 feet, pun intended, to his natural height. Therefore, Oyun is not entirely human, a chimera who leaves hoofprints in the dust, but neither is he necessarily part animal. It's a compelling piece of hidden backstory for a hardly explored character, which ties up his seemingly contradictory heritage and justifies his expectation that a manifestation of the earth would ultimately come to deal him death. I've always known that I would bow down to no man. The theory gives some nuance to Oyun's less than caring relationship to the rest of the kin, and especially to Isidore, the town's only doctor. Oyun's age is described as in the 45 to 50 range. Isidore would probably have been slightly older, possibly already a doctor at the time. Whether Isidore condoned Oyun being sent to his death, or whether he tried and failed to intervene, we cannot know. Clay hooves also identify Oyun specifically with the Shebnek Adir, the spirit accused of killing Isidore, which Oyun did eventually do. On the other hand, this makes it super funny that Oyun's so surprised when the Haruspex crawls out of the earth too. Like, we as the player know from first-hand experience that it's possible to come back from Suok's depths. Maybe he does think that little of Artemi, or that he himself was divinely ordained to be the warden. Maybe Oyun has just been so drunk on power that he thinks he's the powers that be's favorite. Which he is, as Measley describes him.
My favorite is this, this, Foreman, the great big one. That's who I like the most.
In summary, Foreman Oyun is really tall. Dialogue suggests he is that tall because he survived ableist violence and came back with clay hooves. If I've convinced you, follow me here on Twitch and or on Tumblr at Pathologic. You can also check out the Pathologic modding wiki at pathomodding.mirrorhees.org. It's about to need a lot of updates for the Pathologic 3 release cycle. See you there.